Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome again to another Mindset Mastermind. I'm your host, Coach Rush. You'll see I'm dressed a little different than usual because we're doing this live from Chicago. As always, this is our space for a daily dose of motivation, inspiration, a lot of information, so we can kick butt with a day of perspiration, focusing on the things that are going to help us build our business and build our lives. And as always, the room is yours. I am just here to facilitate. And the room is yours as well, the people I'm standing in front of. So with that being said, we are looking at Appendix B and C today. The art and science of showing property, and then the soft closes to get your buyer clients to give you a little more information on where their head's at, where their heart's at. So with that being said, I will be looking for raised hands in the room live or here on screen, as well as microphones that are hot. So Rhonda, did you leave yours on intentionally? I'm going to go by the covered mouth. That doesn't mean you're ready to go, does it?
No.
All right, my dear. Who else has something from the content that they want to make sure others get the perspective? What do you guys have? I'm looking at April as always. How are you, April? What do you have, my dear?
Good. I wanted to touch on the Scratchpad solution that he mentions, which is basically writing down a mock of the contract. I work at a phone service store, and we kind of already do this. So when we're, telling them all these information, all these numbers, so equivalent to showing all these houses, there's so much information that they have to process. Actually seeing it in front of them helps them to actually understand it, and it also helps them to build a bit more rapport with you too. So I think it's really important to always do that. They're ever a little hesitant.
And you can go through those things live in the house. We can also do it live after we've done our tour. And remember, I love from page 256, the 5 basic decision categories, if you will, that a buyer has to make. Price, terms, and there's a lot of them, dates, including closing and occupancy, inclusions and exclusions from the contract, and contingencies that will allow them out of the contract. So you have an opportunity to go through that. And again, if they go through that with you on a house, are they maybe ready to make a decision? It'll help you move them there. Who else? What else you guys have from the content? Okay, so Caesar, are you live on your screen? Well, then come around. You're going to be live here instead, and we're going to do that with you guys. So Caesar's got something here in the room.
So, I have actually just got a call from a client that still remembers how we met and the whole buyer process. It was pretty challenging. He had to sell his home in Ohio, come here, and it was a short time frame. We spent 45 minutes on the phone just getting to know him, getting to know what his needs, wants, everything was. Once we got all that together, he felt comfortable with myself, spoke Spanish. That might have made a difference. But our first meeting, we sat at a coffee shop close to the other properties, and that till this day he still remembers that, how we went through the whole process. I showed him what homes we were going to see, and what that did really is not only cement our relationship and the way that I did business with them, is that also they saw an overview of all the homes, the map, just like it says in the book, to have a map of where he's going, all the streets, actives and sold properties, as well as planning your route. I was also telling him, like, we're going to go here, 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 here. The interesting part about this is that we already negotiated one of the homes, and we went under contract. So we were like praying, make sure like this was the one that they liked. But based on our conversation, I let them know like this was the home for them, and thank God it did go through that. But my point is that they still remember till this day that, because I just talked to them like 2 days ago, and they left and went to Houston now, and they've had other agents, and they have that sense of frustration. They're not like you. So I was like, well, not everyone is. So Just wanted to bring that into the room because they still, like, still to this day, like 5 years ago, they'll still bring that meeting up.
So think about that, guys, everybody here and everybody out there. How many of you, before you wind up going on a home tour, do the preparation of creating an entire MLS map of the properties you're going to show for them, of doing the extra of not just having the houses we're going to see, documenting the other ones that are available in that route, and documenting what's sold and maybe the sale price in that route. And finally, third, and I love that from the conversation, showing the big values, documenting on that map where the parks are, where the shopping is, where the schools are, especially if they have kids. All of those pieces in preparing. Most our consumers are used to an agent who just unlocks the door and that's it. Today, in content we're covering here as well as live in the room, this is about making yourselves radically different than every other average agent. So who else, live or online, has something to add?
I really appreciated, Russ, the plan your route, show the big values, and the extra little things like park across the street so they've got a better view of the home. And we also talked about here's where they're traveling together, and in the last few years they haven't. So we talked yesterday about some of the ways we could initiate that traveling together again. That was a helpful conversation about you know, being more available, even people who get limos to show, or just having something with a driver for that purpose. But and then also looking how they see you, looking out for their safety and security. So as they see you in the preparation of walking into the home, that's an excellent thing that they know you're looking out for them. But next, I love this, is watch when they cross the threshold, watch their eyes. If your buyer's going first, then you just see the back of their heads. But if your buyers like the home, their eyes will dilate. There's no involuntary reaction that occurs. There is one when people see what they like. And if they don't see what they like what they see, their eyes will contract. So, of course, there's the safety note, but watch the body language. Always have them go through the house a second time. There's a second part that says best part of the house. Make sure you discuss your buyer's feeling when they're standing in the best part of the house. And so as Doug and I were talking earlier this morning, we said, oh, okay, so, they're standing here almost ready to go. You say, okay, so what's the best part of this house? And then take them to that best part of the house, which is usually the kitchen, the family room, or the deck. And then talk about it, what they like most about this house. Is it in the 85% range of the house? So many other questions. This is such an excellent for showing, but I can also see relating to it from a listing side when you're talking to the owners of the house. What's the best part of their house? So, thanks.
Absolutely. And here's one of the keys you started with, because this is tying back to some of our Coach Russ rules. Number one, being present. If you are truly present and paying attention, you'll see when they come in how their physiology changed. And I love the specifics of looking at their eyes. If their eyes dilate, they're seeing things they like. If their eyes constrict, they aren't. And imagine if you were that present, that aware every step of the way, how much better connected with them you're going to wind up being as well. Everything we do, guys, is building lifelong relationships. So many agents get dialed into, I need a transaction now. And they are constantly on the treadmill, grinding away, attempting to barely pay their bills. You spend the time building relationships and playing the long game, and you can ultimately actually get off the treadmill and truly retire like you all want. I mean, every one of us got into this industry for three things. We wanted wealth, we wanted freedom, we wanted flexibility. following the models, doing the right things will actually get you there. Who else on the call or in the room has something to add? All right. Justin, come on up here, brother, and sprint. I want you guys in front of the room. Look, that's his sprint, by the way, if you know Justin. Get him.
So from this section, I really like the 3 common mistakes. So first one being launching into presentation. And I'm going to add to that like a failure to be present. So, I think that, especially early on in the career, somebody's nervous, somebody's uncertain or whatever. So we plan this presentation and we're committed to that instead of being present and just kind of reading the room or reading our client. The second mistake, not taking notes. And I've done this, I would add to not taking notes, maybe not logging said notes. So what ends up happening is you just keep asking the same questions over and over because that's your go-to. So then you go to the second meeting and the third meeting and ask the same people the same notes. So, then it becomes painfully obvious, who's present and who's not. The third one, asking the wrong questions. And we got a whole bunch of wrong questions. And I think the idea is to get to the foundational questions that are going to take you the direction that you need to go. Either we're asking a question that's like out in left field or trying to close when maybe they're not ready for that. I would relate that to like Gary Vee he says all the time, jab, 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 right hook. So that asking these correct questions is like establishing a foundation and building this thing up. And then I'm going to add a fourth one, and it kind of circles back to the first one, is not listening. So if we're not present and actively listening, and by listening, I mean using our ears more than our mouth, but I also mean we go back a couple chapters ago where we talked about, I think is a 7% of our communication is the actual language that we use. So actively listening and looking at our clients to pick up on cues so that when they're ready to make a decision, they just need a gentle nudge or the right question, that we're circling back to asking the wrong questions. That's what I got.
Awesome. So let's talk about those numbers real quick as I saw them back. And you might want to write them down for those that haven't been with us before. 55% of your communication success is body language. You see people, they'll walk in a room and you know instantly if you like them or not. And it's body language. 38% is tonality, rate of speech, the way you speak. Only 7% is actually the word you use. And so it's the same for your clients. You should be paying attention to that. Number 2 that you brought into the room, Justin, was asking the right questions. You've got to make sure that you have gotten to know them and you're in rapport first before moving on to questions about business. Otherwise, you won't get them ultimately to business. And so this looks like finding about their family, finding out what's important to them, finding out more about their life and their previous experiences, maybe even asking about previous real estate, then asking about what we're going to do today. Does that make sense? You guys have seen bobbleheads before, and I'm seeing them in the room. What else you guys have? I've got Doug now, don't I?
Oh, okay, great. I have a client right now that I know that it is important to them to know where that walking path is that's close to the house. So if I see a house that is not close to a walking path, they're not going to be interested in that house. So really listening to what your clients like, what is important in their lifestyle, about the neighborhood. For this particular buyer, if I show her a house that's not close to a walking path, she's going to look at me like I have 2 heads. and she should. So I think these are really important questions that we really find out about their lifestyle and what's important to them. There's another thing that's important to her too. It's a Trader Joe's. Well, we only have one Trader Joe's in all of the Austin area that I know about. Maybe there's more, but they are building one that's going to be close to the area that she wants to live in. So,
Which one of those do you know? Which one's the one you know being built?
one it's up in Leander.
And there's another one being built in Bee Caves right now.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Well, I know the one that's off of Jollyville, but I don't know the one in Bee Caves yet. So,
Hey,
all
they're
right,
coming.
good.
They're coming. Love it. So, all right, Dustin, my friend, welcome to the big screen in the room. What do you have?
So I'm going to go off of what Doug and Jeanette said, but showing your big value, those maps, they're really common in commercial real estate. If you guys have ever watched or read one of those offering memorandums, they usually show a huge map blown out of everything in the highway systems. And then they zone in and they hit all the big players, all the retailers, all their logos onto there. All you really have to do is pull up a Google Maps and hit what's near me, and you guys can do the same exact thing if you got access to CoStar or LoopNet or something like that, you might be able to pull it up. But it's extremely valuable for people to know what's around them, because all of a sudden they're going to go down the street and realize that there was a graveyard 2 blocks away, and they're going to freak out and the house is for sale 2 months later. So pretty easy to do. It's just, I don't think we're in the best practice in residential real estate is doing it as much as commercial, but it brings a lot of value to clients.
So, quick question for you, Dustin. What systems, obviously other than the LoopNet, might we have access to? I'm just curious if you have them on your radar that we can pull that information quickly to be able to provide it.
Yeah, you're going to end up paying for a lot of this stuff like Batch Geo, Land ID, Land Vision. The easiest I would say is just Google Maps. It can get a lot of it on there and it's free. So I don't think you need to go over and above, but make sure you're doing the satellite view, because like Doug's point, right? You'll be able to see a little path next to the house where it might not necessarily be there if you're on, the standard color map.
Fantastic. Miss Rhonda, I see your mic's hot and ready to go. What do you have, my dear?
It is. And if I wouldn't have realized it early, or I should have realized it earlier, what I wanted to say was when you were talking about being present, one of the things I think helps you to stand out for the long-term relationships is after the close. And so the close, if you're paying attention during the transaction and you're listening to things that they like about the house, and when they find that one and, oh, the pool table is going to go over here and this is going to go over there. Or another instance was a lady was like, oh, I didn't like the cellar, I'm going to get some sage and sage the house to get the juju out. Well, when it came to the closing gift, guess what I got her? Sage, crystals. The other one I got customized pool sticks, and it really lets them know that you're listening. And that's my 2 cents for today.
Well, and I want to come back to a piece you said because it's important for everybody in this space. And I'm going to actually ask for a show of hands. How many of you speak voice to voice to a past client a minimum of 4 times in the first 90 days after they have closed escrow? So I'm seeing just a few hands here and one in here. And think about that. What's the message you're telling them? That they're just a transaction. That's all they matter. Again, NAR statistics, most recently, 88% of consumers surveyed said they would use the same agent again. They loved them. They had a great experience. Only 18% actually do. Because we don't stay in a relationship. We value the money more than the person. And obviously that changes today for all of you guys in this room. And 4 hours from now or 3.5 from now, it's going to be different in this room as well, but I'm standing in. Who else? What else you guys have for the content? Yes, I heard a voice in the room, and Celeste is sprinting to the screen.
Hey everyone. So the one thing I got out of the book as I was listening to it was they asked the person who was the agent, you know, your assumption is that you're going to be handing someone paperwork, physical paperwork. And there are people out there that would more appreciate getting it in a digital form so that they have their own way of marking up whatever it is that they're receiving. And I thought about that because I don't know if in my entire career it occurred to me that I should ask. And since this whole assignment, this book, is stressing everything we do, we should be thinking, how can I level up my business? And I'm thinking in my mind, something as simple as asking someone, how do you want to receive this, gives them power to do it their way versus our way. Because we make a lot of assumptions that we're just doing it our way because it's easy. But in fact, our paperwork could easily be scanned to a PDF. People are carrying iPads and iPhones, and maybe that's the way that they prefer to do business. I'm just saying, don't assume. And the other one was, I really love the idea of listening for clues, and I'll give my own story. I had a client I sold last year, and they had really stressed how they had this big dog, and the dog was needing a big yard. And we started off with, oh, I need a half an acre, I need an acre. Before I knew it, I was saying, well, with what you want and where you want it, that's not going to happen because they just don't exist. So all our conversation was about this frickin' dog. And we found a property that had a 6-foot high fence, and they finally said, yeah, that works. And then as I was videoing the property so they could see it because they lived in California, I'm videoing, doing my best not to say, oh, by the way, the current property owner has a cat. And I was about to say my opinion, which was this house smells like it. I reserved my thoughts and I just said, I just want to know that this current homeowner has a cat. And the first thing out of the wife's mouth was, oh, I have a cat. Never ever had come up in our initial consult. And I'm not sure why, but now I realize I'm learning never just stop at the first pet.
Never stop at the first pet, never stop at the first child. Here's the beautiful part of it that I want to really anchor though, is staying out of judgment. It's not your opinions that matter. It's not your judgment that matters. Imagine being a real estate coach playing at a very high level and going to Portland, Oregon with your oldest daughter and your fiance to buy a house with another agent. That was my last weekend. And just mouth shut, not my opinion. There were things that occurred that I didn't necessarily agree with. And I'm never going to throw the other agent under the bus. And I don't know that market as well. So your opinion set aside, allow your clients, and if you're working with another agent, that agent to run the lead. What else do you guys have? We got 4 more minutes. Elizabeth, great to see you. What do you got?
I have a question. I want to get people's opinions on this. When you're walking through the house, they're looking at everything, they're commenting, let's say they're loving it. You're asking, all these questions. What do you say when they say to you, what do you think about this house? What is your...
So let me give you mine. That is a fantastic question. And am I going to be living here?
Okay, that's kind of where I go with it. And I say, hey, my opinion really doesn't matter. I'm not going to be living here. It's really up to you guys. So, okay, I just thought I'd bounce that off and say, what do most people say? Because that's kind of what I say.
Well, notice the switch and the slight switch. And again, for everybody in this room, it's a key component that we're going to be hammering today. I still asked a question.
Yeah, I need to frame it as a question. Yeah.
Question driven. We're giving them time of possession. We're letting them arrive at their answers rather than us telling the answers. And if we ask the right questions, we can still guide them the right way without us directing them the right way. I've got Jeanette this time again. Jeanette, what do you got?
And so it was interesting to hear that question, Elizabeth. I like that. So when they ask, what's your opinion of it? You can say, well, what does that mean to you that you're really asking me, since, and I just want to reiterate, I'm not going to be the one who's living here. So then they can take whichever part they want to do, they can get the specifics of it, if that's important at that time.
Absolutely. All right, we're at 9:28, 2 minutes, always honoring and respecting your time. Who else to close us out today? Gabrielle, the floor is yours. What do you have, my dear?
Good morning. I just was going to say something I've started doing that has helped me and clients is if a client mentions their favorite candy bar is a Butterfingers or something, I take my contact card for them in my notes of it. I'll put favorite candy bar is Butterfingers or hates chocolate or something like that. That way, if we have like a really bad inspection period or something, like I know they hate red wine, but they really love white wine when they had a bad day, like those kind of things, because I'm not going to remember everything. That has been a game changer for me. But also, we're in a contract law state. So I do buyer crash courses prior to ever showing a client a house, and going back to Caesar and what he said of like going through everything. That's where you earn your value. And I've been told by other agents that I waste my time and I could do more transactions by like cutting those out. Cause I've had clients that really want to get into the contract law and they'll go over, I've had 4-hour meetings, but I will tell you, I never have to go over the contracts. They know what appraisals are. They know what waiving inspections and what like anything that could go wrong. They know the costs and the risk of it all. And then like my clients get under contract quicker by spending the time on the front end too, which I mean, I think everybody here does add that extra value, but it's something I've realized that like, it's not a waste of time. That's how I've built my business.
Well, think about this for a moment to wrap us up. The people that say money is not important, that you don't need to worry about money, what do they all have in common? Yeah, they don't have any. It's always the people that don't have it that are complaining about it. The people that tell you you don't have to build relationships by knowing the details, spending the time. What do they usually not have? Relationships. They don't have a database. They don't have a group of people they can constantly build and continue to build. They can't go into a year knowing, based on their database, that they have 50, 60 transactions lined up. I mean, Tony DeCello, great coach, great story that every day, January 1, he started the year knowing he had 80 units because of what his database produced year after year after year, because he stayed in conversation and he had a touch program.